All right, we're live. Welcome back to Postgame Show. We don't really have a name for it yet, just the Postgame Show with Jordan and Gino. I'm Jordan. That's Gino over there. I always do that backwards. Man, what a crappy game today, dude.
Dude, it was about as bad. It was about as bad as the pregame weather, man.
It's I mean, we were talking a little bit right after the game while you were driving home. Um, FIU loss, Louisiana Tech loss, and now this loss. All in a 3-year span. Is it 3 seasons or 4 seasons? I think
Uh,
it's
Three, I believe.
yeah. That sucks, man. Like, to have a loss this terrible and to be able to have 2 other examples to compare it to in a 3-season span, is not ideal.
No, no, not at all.
Um, so I wanna talk first big picture about this loss. I saw a lot of people on Twitter asking, was this loss as bad or worse or, whatever, compared to the FIU loss in 2019? What's your knee-jerk reaction to that, Gino?
I don't think it's as bad.
Okay.
Reason being is there has to be a level or a percentage of what's the word I'm looking for? A percentage of leniency, right?
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, we can talk about all day, every day, how this staff is leaps and bounds ahead of what we had previous, right, with the previous administration. But
Yeah.
those two losses came when there was that administration's foundation has quote unquote been set already, right?
Yeah.
There was things in place. There was experience with the roster. There was continuity amongst the coaches and the staff already established prior to them going.
Yeah.
And this isn't an excuse in any way, shape, or form because there is no excuse for how we played today. But
Yeah.
this is four of a new administration of new staff. Whether or not
Mhm.
there's some animosity or there's some trust issues amongst the staff, that's something we can talk about a little bit later. Um,
Yeah.
this loss is bad. I mean, I know it's bad in terms of stats when you talk about. I read something earlier. Don't quote me on it. It was about how this is the most points Miami has ever given up to a non-Power Five school at Hard Rock Stadium, or
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Yeah.
So that's definitely pretty bad. But I wouldn't rank it. I mean, I would rank it up there with the FIU and La Tech games, but I don't think it was as bad as those two.
Yeah. Big picture, I don't know. It's a terrible loss, man. I'm kind of, like I pride myself in trying to be centered as a fan. I don't get too high, don't get too low. I think I usually come off as negative because I'm not usually overly optimistic. Um, but like I'm trying to keep this all in perspective. Um, because there is one fact that kind of looms over how we frame this loss.
Okay.
And it's the fact that Mario Cristobal signed an 8-year deal.
Hmm.
Um, so no matter how we feel about Mario, I doubt he gets fired for 5.5 years at least.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're gonna fire him at the end of this year and have to pay him $70 million. You
No.
know,
Yeah. No, I hear you.
so I mean, my tweets have kind of been all over the place today. My takes have been all over the place in the sense of, this is terrible, it's unacceptable. Um, but we are tied to Mario, and so whether it's fair or not, in the sense of it being good analysis, like my my tendency is to just be like, we have to give him time. I mean, we have to. Like, why write him off and totally kill this coaching administration when he can't go anywhere for 5 years? Like, we can't afford it. We just pumped all this money into the program. Like, he's here, so like let's make the best of it. Let's give him the patience that he needs. Does that make sense, or am I flawed in thinking that way?
No, it does. And I mean, there's there's probably a handful of coaches in the country. I mean, less than a handful that could come in and really
Yeah.
fix things any better or any more quick than he can.
Yeah.
I think we're still committed to him. He hasn't done anything that's like, oh my God, like we can't recover from
Yeah.
this. This isn't year 3 or 4 with,
Yeah.
3 or 4 of his recruiting classes, and the
Yeah.
ebbs and flows of him picking out his staff and identifying issues and shortfalls and things like
Yeah.
that. But it's just the hype of we are off-season champs once again. We always win the off-season, right? But we can't win a game against Middle Tennessee State. And
Yeah.
there has to be a level of understanding and patience, and I think that's what a lot of the fans, to include myself, were expecting a lot more.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it on our first week that Mario is guaranteed to lose that one game a season where we're not supposed to. You know,
Yeah.
I'd much rather been against like a Virginia or Virginia Tech, or like a UNC or something, but
Yeah.
not Middle Tennessee State. And I think that the program, the staff, is still trying to recover from that
Yeah.
loss against Texas A&M. And then
Yeah.
how do you take that mindset, right, and still that resiliency in the players, right, and have it carry over to the
Yeah.
next week? Do you come out hungry? Do you come out humble? Like what
Yeah.
is it?
Well, here's a problem that I have with this team this season is that I have never really seen it at any point.
Yeah.
After our two wins, I had a tweet that kind of blew up in the sense that I was just like, I think Florida's better than us. Is pretty it's pretty much what I said. And
Yeah.
people weren't having it. They were really upset. And they were like, we just outscored the other teams like 100-20 or whatever. And it's just like,
Okay. Cool.
yeah, like I just haven't really seen anything that I liked out of the team so far. Um, but I was willing to give it some time.
Yeah.
But I think once you're losing a game like this, then kind of your time's up. It's like you had 3 weeks of regular season games, even giving you a mulligan against Texas A&M. You have 3 weeks to get ready for this game in the sense that you have to put it together and beat group of 5 teams. You just have to. If you're at Miami, you cannot lose to group of 5 teams. It's
No. Not
completely unacceptable.
no. It's not acceptable in any way.
So I'm just surprised that, for Josh Gaddis, for Tyler Van Dyke, um, people haven't been flaming Kevin Steele enough over this game because we gave up 500 something yards. Roman from Orange Bowl Boys tweeted they had a receiver that averaged 84 and a half yards per reception. That's pretty, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So just kind of across the board, the fact that we couldn't get up for this game is pretty absurd. I'd be much more understanding if it was against a team like Alabama than against a group of 5 team.
No, I completely agree. There seemed to be not a whole lot of energy, and pick your poison as to what you want to attribute that to. Flip a coin 15 different times and you get 30
Right.
different results, right? Figure out what you think your personal feelings are as to why we couldn't get it, get the energy up, and you're
Yep.
probably partially right in any one of those 30 options.
Yep.
It was abysmal. I mean, every single game this year we have started off so slow on the offense,
Yeah.
and I know we're going to talk about the offense later, so I'm not going to dive into it yet. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's got to be some ownership, some accountability on the staff, on the players, right,
Yeah.
to really figure out what exactly it is that's going on.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into coaching. We've talked about Mario, we've talked about Gaddis and Kevin Steele. What do we do with the coaching? I have no idea. Well, let me start by saying this. This is a lesson that I learned today. It finally set in. My rule forever when I am personally endorsing a candidate, not that it means anything, um, I will never again be happy about a hire of a guy that didn't have autonomy in his last job. And I phrased it better in a tweet that I had. I can't think of exactly what I said. Like, don't hire a guy that was running somebody else's system.
Yes.
Like Michigan's offense looks pretty much the same as it did last year.
I wonder
Uh,
why.
yeah. And Rhett Lashley really looked good with Tyler Van Dyke. He struggled with De'Aaron King. Like he was running a Sonny Dykes offense. I mean, and Rhett was good. I don't want to act like I'm saying Rhett was not good. But never again, dude. Like, never again will I be happy about a hire unless we know for certain that the guy had autonomy and that he was essentially running the show on his side of the ball. Especially
Yeah.
for a coach like Mario Cristobal, who is going to be a CEO style coach, right?
Yep.
So why on earth would we bring in a guy that didn't have autonomy in his last situation?
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. I'm a little impartial on this, right? I see. Here's the thing. There's been 2 out of these 4 weeks, right, where I was in support of the current offensive coordinator,
Uh-huh.
and there's been those 2 other weeks where I was like, "What the heck are we doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing specifically?" I don't think at all times the scheme is bad.
Yeah.
He brings a Big Ten style of offense right here to
Yeah.
Miami, which is a speed in space kind of thing. You get those versatile big guys in space, and
Yeah.
you throw it to them, or you make them, you make them pay. Um,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that can be attributed to the offense's lackluster performance so far. It
Yeah.
can be it can be a mixture of the scheme. It can be a mixture of the coaching. It can be a mixture of the players, the talent, the personnel, the execution, right? And I think you combine all of it into just understanding that there is a lot of growth that needs to happen, and it needs to happen fast because, you know, Miami has consistently always had talent. We've always had talent, you know, and
Yep.
we're not executing. We're not playing. We're getting outplayed by dudes who wouldn't even have ever looked at an offer from Miami.
Yeah.
Absolutely dominated on the offensive line today. Like dominated. Like it's not even.
Yeah.
It's there's no ifs ands or buts about it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the whole not hiring proven. Not saying that Gaddis is necessarily unproven, but he's not really proven at all. He
Yeah.
was an off. It was similar to Lashley when he was at Auburn. With Gus Malzahn.
Yeah.
Lashley was the OC, but Gus called the plays.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I mean, everyone always talked about how we post Gaddis from Michigan and how we got him and everything. Like Gaddis wasn't staying with Michigan. We could talk about the off-field issues he had and the controversies and whatnot, but
Yeah.
we didn't poach him from Michigan. And again, he's likely my least favorite hire of this entire staff.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It was a convenient PR move for the Hurricanes, and I'd be lying if I was saying that I didn't get hyped by it.
Oh, I did.
Um, but I like just in retrospect, um, I mean, it was out there at the time that he wasn't going back to Michigan. That Harbaugh was looking for a move. Um, and yeah, we just kind of overlooked it because we were excited, right?
Yeah.
But now it kind of makes sense. Michigan is still rolling, and we're not.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is. But tell me what you're seeing on the defensive side of the ball with Kevin Steele. So last week I thought we looked pretty good on defense. I was actually very encouraged, but this week was rough, man. This was a rough week for the defense.
Yeah, I mean, we're still failing to generate pass rush on the defense, and there should be no excuse why guys like Nigel Lee Kelly, Jafari Harvey, and Mesidor and Agude and those guys, can't get up the field. I mean, there was a couple pressures by a lot of them. There was a couple close ones where they had the quarterback wrapped up, couldn't bring him down. Like it wasn't that it was non-existent; it was the fact that it should be dominated a lot more. So I'm going to talk about the defensive line first. I thought we did an okay job on the front four as far as controlling the run for like the 12 plays they actually ran the ball. I mean, credit to Middle Tennessee State's running back. I mean, that guy's a baller. He outplayed a lot of our guys. But defensively, I think I enjoy the scheme and I trust Kevin Steele because he is proven. I think the back end of our defense is pathetic. We got guys that can't cover a nosebleed, man. And
Yeah.
that was my biggest concern coming into the season was the corners.
Yep.
You lose a guy like Tyreek Stevenson in the second half. Corey Couch gets hurt. Insert Daryl Porter. Unproven freshman Jaden Harris. Malik Curtis, and we just get absolutely torched. When your backups are true freshmen. Not saying that they're not talented, but when your backups are true freshmen with no game experience, and they're looking at an offense that runs 4 or 5 wide and goes vertical on you almost every single play. There has to
Yeah.
be immaculate communication on that back end there, and it's not there.
Yeah. And this is gonna sound really stupid. Maybe we overlooked Middle Tennessee State a little bit, uh, um, because they've been blowing teams out besides James Madison.
Yeah,
And I mean James Madison just beat App State today,
yeah.
and they're 3-0. They've been blowing teams out, so. I mean, James Madison could be ranked next week, and that would mean that Michigan, Middle Tennessee State would be 3-1, the only loss to a ranked team. I don't want that to come off as an excuse because there is not even a semblance of an excuse. But
No, not at all.
Like because the fact that you overlooked a team anyways is a sign that you're not mentally prepared. It's a lapse in preparation, right? Which was that was the thing that Mario promised. He singled it out and
We
promised.
will never be unprepared for a game.
Yes, and his fourth game as head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, we are unprepared for I think Middle Tennessee State will end up having a really good season, but no excuse.
They should be on in terms of competing,
Yeah.
with any Power 5 school.
Agreed.
Let alone us. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that Florida State's likely the best team in Florida right now.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to double down on my tweet from 2 weeks ago. Florida's better than we are. Like Florida's hanging with top 10 teams. They hung with Utah. They beat Utah. Yeah. So Florida, they beat Utah, and then what did they do last week? I know they lost, but wasn't it to a good team?
They lost to they
they beat USF.
They beat USF last year.
Yeah.
Last week. Excuse me.
And then hung with Tennessee right to the end up in Knoxville. So I think we're the worst group or Power 5 team in Florida right now.
Yes.
It's pretty sad.
Yes.
Especially because before the season, if you would have taken bets on who the best team was in the state of Florida, I think there would have been good money on Miami. I bet you the majority of the bets would be on Miami.
Yeah, definitely would have been pretty close to Miami or Florida State, just because they have the season staff. They have a really good off season as well. So it would have been neck and neck probably with the edge to Florida State.
Yeah. So let's move into the specific sides of the ball. We need to talk about quarterback. Man, I don't even know what to think about this whole TVD thing. Jake Garcia looked really good, especially right out the gate in relief of Tyler Van Dyke. Kind of cooled a little bit, but I don't really blame him. I mean, playing with a 3-score deficit in the fourth quarter, you don't really have an option except for to throw deep every play.
Yep.
His effectiveness kind of faded. What's your take on the quarterback situation going into next week?
I think we made the right call to sit TVD down.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a debate in any way, shape, or form that TVD is the better quarterback than Jake Garcia.
Oh, really?
I love Jake Garcia. I think he's immensely talented. But Tyler Van Dyke is the better overall quarterback. He's proven. I think he's going through some kind of slump right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what it can be attributed to. I don't know if he's just, maybe taking too much onus on himself to be the leader and be the guy to help carry this team. And, maybe it's, a lack of trust in the scheme. Maybe it's a lack of trust in the receivers, or maybe it's a healthy combination of everything that we've already talked about, but I don't think there is in my personal opinion, I don't think there's a doubt in my mind that Tyler Van Dyke is still the better quarterback.
Interesting. I am I don't hate that. I'm just surprised to hear it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm almost as big of a Jake Garcia fan as it gets.
No, for sure. I get it. I've been a huge TVD apologist over the last 2 weeks. The crowd that wanted to bench him started during the Southern Miss game, and I thought that was bewildering. And last week I thought it was very reasonable to point out the drops and that kind of stuff. And by no means did Van Dyke play exceptional against Texas A&M. But he made the big throws when it counted. Like he had us in that game on the last drive, and of course a drop by Brashard Smith on 4th and like 3 or whatever it was. Killed a drive where TVD had good placement. He was making the right throws. I agree with you. You know, sitting him in this game was the right move. We could not afford to lose this game. Like by all means, we should have pulled out all the stops to win this game. I'm glad we did. I would probably roll with Jake if it was me. I don't know what to think about the situation moving forward. I mean, I think it'd be easier to make the call if I knew these guys personally and could talk to them
Yeah.
and just kind of get a feel for what was going on with them individually. The thing that worries me about Tyler compared to last season, his throws don't have any velocity on it comparatively. Like he had an NFL arm last year. This year he does not.
Yeah.
And like none of his throws, you know, the out routes to the sideline at varying distances just have no zip.
Yeah.
His throws across the middle are not on target. I don't know what is going on with him. You know,
Oh,
it could be an injury. You know, if his shoulder or his ankle or his foot are injured, it'd make a lot of sense.
yeah.
It could be a mental thing. You know, I mean, who knows? I'm
Yeah.
kind of at a loss with TVD because even his like his mechanics and his fundamentals look so different compared to last year. He just looks like an entirely different quarterback. So
Yeah.
I have a hard time giving up on him or just saying it's just scheme or it's just him or whatever. I mean, if you throw hard, you can throw hard, right? And he lost it. So I don't know. It would be easy for me to make a call if I could like sit down with TVD and realize that he had stuff going on or whatever. You know, then I'd be like, well, let's roll with Jake. Because
Absolutely.
in my mind today, from my couch, granted, you know, I'm just a fan. From my couch, it looked like the team kind of rallied around Jake. And it's hard to say whether that was because of Jake the person or if it was just be like a wake up call, you know, like, oh, people are getting benched. Um, and Jake came in and started, you know, throwing darts, putting it right on the money. But the receivers also were catching it, which they weren't doing for Tyler. So,
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, yeah. I mean, TVD has made his handful of bad throws,
yeah,
but I mean, looking at it too and talking with people who actually like are a lot more educated than I am and like breaking down X's and O's, like there's a handful of times where the ball placement isn't necessarily his fault.
yeah,
Maybe the receiver's running a 7 yard in versus a 5 yard in, or
yeah,
they're sitting instead of doing something else or whatever, and that disconnect between the route concepts and the timing and the distance in which their routes are executed. All those things can be contributed to making bad throws. Now,
yeah,
some of them there's no excuse for, right? It's just blatant misses on his end,
yeah.
you know. But there are some. I just feel like everything's just out of sync right now. There's no continuity, whether it's the scheme, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the players, whatever it might be, But it's a slump that they need to find a way to get out of.
I'm trying to think of how we get out of this slump. Can't really come up with anything substantial.
I think this 2 week bye week we're about to have is going to do us a lot of benefit. Hopefully,
Yeah, yeah,
that's the optimism in me. Knowing Miami's recent past, though, bye weeks are not our friend. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about Mario a little bit. So, you know, one thing that Marsh and I discussed a little bit on the Fours Up podcast during the off season was Mario on Saturdays, right? It was kind of, you know, for anyone who's on Twitter out there, uh, it was considered to be bad form to say anything about Mario during the off season. You
yes,
couldn't bring up any critiques, no matter how valid or relevant they were. You know,
yeah,
people just didn't want to hear it, right? And that's neither here nor there. But Marsh and I tried to get into the fact a little bit that Mario's biggest weakness as a coach, from what we saw at Oregon, was Saturdays.
His
That
game
kind of
man.
sucks. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Game days.
Yes.
That's not good, but he has been so excellent. He was so excellent at Oregon in every other facet um, that it worked. Like his excellence on every other day besides game day translated to winning football and a football team that won a Power Five conference multiple times. So I don't know. I hate to say that this wasn't like I guess I'm just toying with the idea. Are we overreacting by thinking that this was never in the realm of possibility?
No, I don't think we're overreacting. I think what we did was we overhyped ourselves and overanalyzed what we have, the foundation that we still have yet to build. We are,
Yeah.
regardless, you can have the most elite staff in the world, but if you don't have the talent to, to back up that what their scheme is and what it's standing for, it's just going to be consistent disappointment. These guys have a plan in mind. They have to get the players that they want to fit their scheme, right? And then we can start to sit there and panic if things still don't work out, right?
Yeah.
Um, I heard it from a buddy who's actually an Oregon fan, and he said it to me a couple times. Excuse me, it's actually made a lot of sense. And unfortunately, this isn't what you want out of a elite head coach,
Yeah.
But Coach Cristobal's success is solely predicated on the ability of his coordinators to succeed. You know, um, and that is when you look at elite head coaches right now in college football, in the NFL, they are elite at every aspect of the game. And what
Yeah.
we talked about, Mario on Saturdays is probably his worst attribute. Um, his success at Miami was going to be solely predicated on the coordinators he has and
Yeah.
what they get for him. Um, unfortunately, that's the reality. But that's
Yep.
something that we have to understand. And maybe we were too overhyped. We were too critical. We were too, oh, we're going to win everything. Mario's going to get everyone. The state of
Yeah.
Miami, we're going to win every recruit, yada, yada, yada. And then we didn't tailor our expectations without understanding that, yeah, we got a lot of transfers in, right? Some of these transfers are pretty good, right? But for the most part, like they're not great, and we have to be honest with ourselves as fans and understand that, we have to be realistic about our expectations and our outcomes and what
Yeah.
we can expect to see every week.
Yeah. Um, at this point, I fully see what your friend was saying. you know, um, Kind of sucks. I'm not out on Gaddis. I did predict that he would kind of be the first coach that we were ready to fire, quote unquote, just because I think his job is the toughest. Like our wide receiver room is really bad, and it has been bad. Even if it was healthy, it was bad.
Yep.
And he's trying to coach up that position. He's trying to install a new offense, and
Very
that's a tough job. And whether or not he's the right guy for the job remains to be seen. I'm kind of having my doubts, but I don't know. It's just going to take time, and we have to view this through the lens of like Mario's here for 6 years, anyways. So like we we have to give him some breathing room. Like one guy on Twitter that I was going back and forth with before or during the game, he's just like, this is it. This is like we are going down with the ship with Mario because we went all in and you only get to go all in once.
Yep.
I'm not saying we're going to drop football if it doesn't work out, but like we went all in, man. Like this is it. We put our nuts on the table, I like to say. Like this was our big move. So we're
Yeah,
stuck with it, man.
yeah. I think we got to continue to remain patient, and
Yeah.
we as a fan base, we can have our expectations and stuff, but at the end of the day, we still need to support the guys that are actually suiting up every week.
Yeah.
I see a lot of these dudes like, adding players on Twitter and calling them
Yeah.
out, calling coaches, and that's not the right thing to do, man. I mean,
I agree.
you can be critical as a fan, but at the end of the day, like if you want our program to succeed, you can still be critical and still support the players.
For sure. I mean, Twitter is a great place to share your voice on the team, but I personally believe that it crosses a line when you breach that wall between us and the people on the team.
Yeah.
Coaches is a somewhat different argument, as they're being, compensated very handsomely for their job. I still think it's more so in bad taste than unethical, but like, just leave the players alone, man. Like, if they sucked, they know that they sucked, and like, talk about it, but don't at them, don't jump in their DMs. It's just stupid.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man.
So one thing I wanted to touch on, and we can wrap up after this if you want. So I was talking with someone last week and we were kind of juxtaposing the difference of a rebuild for a guy like Lincoln Riley at USC and a rebuild for Mario at Miami.
Okay.
Lincoln Riley's a scheme guy. He's an X's and O's guy. He's an offensive genius. He's a quarterback guru, or he's fashioned as such. And Mario's a culture guy. I think that's an important distinction that we should keep in mind as we try to be patient, right? A playbook is immediate,
Yes.
right? Like, you put in a new playbook, like, you can beat somebody in chess with your playbook on day one.
Yep.
And Lincoln Riley has all the tools to do that with Caleb Williams and I think Addison, the receiver from Pitt.
Yeah, Jordan Addison.
Yeah, he has plenty of toys to play with at USC, whereas building a culture is an entirely different process.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I don't think Miami's even rebuilding. I think we are beginning to build. I think we are creating that foundation because there hasn't been one. I mean, we've been the joke of college football for 2 decades, man. I mean,
yeah.
Regardless of your opinion on the stadium, right? We don't have our own stadium, regardless of everyone's personal opinions about that. We have beyond awful facilities, right? Granted, they're being upgraded currently; they're being built, right? It's supposed to be state of the art, top 5 in the country. We'll see if that actually happens, right?
Yep.
We've had no support in the athletic department. That is changing, right?
Yep.
Like all those other programs, like they've had at least the minimum of those, right? We have had nothing. We have been nothing, and we've had nothing except for hope. That's all we've done. We've lived off of, dominance 2+ decades ago, and we've lived off of that hype ever since. So I think what's happening is we're getting the people in here to create a foundation and to start building something for the future, and it's going to take a while to rebuild that.
I agree with that entirely. One of the points that I've been trying to hammer home this whole offseason and into the regular season is everything that we did this offseason. I know we treated it as like it was part of the hype machine, right? In stealing Dan Radakovich from Clemson, stealing Mario from Oregon, stealing Josh Gaddis from Michigan, getting Kevin Steele, who is highly regarded, the facilities, talking about the new stadium. All of these things are not short-term fixes by any means. Like, none of them were ever going to make a difference on day one. Nope. The coaches, you could argue a little bit, but talking more about the financial investment in Dan Radakovich and Mario and the facilities. I think, the idea of poaching coaches was more representative of the financial, upgrade that our program was getting this offseason. Like, that isn't short-term stuff. That's not what builds a program overnight. I think we will see the fruits of this offseason incrementally over the next 3 to 5 years. Like, the facilities are totally intangible right now. A recruit can't walk through a 3D model, and be like, oh, I'm recruiting here, or, I'm committing here.
Yep.
So I guess we just need to keep this long game in mind.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we need to stop with all the flashy stuff, trying to be something that we're not, and we just need to shut the hell up and just win every week. That's what we need to do. Go down there, play smash mouth football, right? Stop all this granted, yeah, Miami invented swag and all this other stuff, right? But we need
Yeah.
to stop all that. We need to stop trying to buy our way back into dominance and just go out and execute. And that's what we
Yep.
need.
Yep. Just echoing Mario, he the U. I mean, he's never said that the U isn't back. He just says the U is back to work, right? Um,
Millennia to go before we're back.
yeah, yeah, and I started a new career. Well, I started my career in the last 3 years or so, and it's really changed my perspective of getting to work. Right? There's been so many setbacks, and especially in the first year and a half, like I just felt like a complete idiot every day, and I hated it, and I dragged my feet, and it was the worst. I hated getting up every day.
Mhm.
Um, but I had this long-term vision that I believed in, and there came a point probably 6 months ago that I was able to reflect on the success that I had made, or the progress that I had made. And since then, my progress has been exponential, and it's still just in the process. But the idea of being back to work, um, my perspective on that is long term now.
Yeah,
It's
I agree, man.
getting to work is trial and error. Getting to work is not the idea that you won't make mistakes. It's the idea that you will correct any mistakes that happen along the way, right? That you are determined for uh, you are determined for success, and that mistakes won't stop you because you are back to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man.
So yeah, dude, today sucked.
Yeah, today was a really bad day, man.
Wow, I really hope. I know I'm kind of waxing like optimistic right now. Probably seems weird. I think it's just hope, because we can't afford for Mario to not work out, man.
No, we can't. I think it will. Whether again, this is we're 3 to 5 years away, man. We are 3 to 5 years away from being
Yeah,
not even a playoff contender, but just a contender week in and week out on the Power Five level.
yeah,
We have a lot of work to do. We are behind in everybody again in every facet. We are so far behind in the college football world. It's not even funny, man.
yeah,
You know, so we'll see what happens. I mean, we can only hope for the best. Continue to support the players, support the coaches. We can be
yeah,
critics, but at the end of the day, again, they're the ones out there executing, and they deserve our support.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna try to goad you into one hot take here. Is
So,
Gaddis our OC next season?
are you asking me personally?
Well, I'm just saying, what do you think? Like if you had to bet money right now, and I'm giving you the freedom that you can change it, but I'm just saying right now, if you have to put $20 down, is Gaddis our offensive coordinator next season?
Yes.
Okay. I hope you're right, honestly. I doubt he's gonna do anything at this point to get a head coaching job. So
I hope I'm wrong.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Um
I just think it's weird because of with the amount of money we've asked for a staff, and amount of coaches we've purchased, and
yeah.
paid to do things. I don't think the boosters and anyone else. I don't know. Maybe we have a totally different back office now in the
Yeah.
athletic department, so maybe. But I don't think that they'd be too keen on saying, "Hey, you paid this guy this much money, and you want to let him go after 1 year. Well,
Yeah.
now we're going to question your next hire." You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some politics involved, but I also don't see, or I also see uh, AD Dan Radakovich as a no BS kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I also feel like he'd be all about, we're not going to accept
Yeah.
mediocrity.
So sorry, I'm gonna drag you back into one more topic if that's okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I just thought of something. Tell me if I'm crazy in thinking this, but Mario's coaching style is a little bit archaic.
Yes.
I feel like it seems to me as if it's kind of his thing that our offense doesn't seem very modern, in my opinion.
No.
And that seems like a Mario thing. He probably picked Gaddis because he's like, yeah, Big Ten offense. I love it.
Yeah.
Exciting.
You saw it at Oregon.
Yeah. And it's followed Mario around. So I was toying with the idea of like, Nick Saban hiring Lane Kiffin, and to give Lane credit, he modernized Nick Saban's football philosophy on the offensive side of the ball.
Yep.
They have stayed with the spread offense and a mobile quarterback ever since when they could, obviously they had Mac Jones, but that was kind of a depth chart thing. But like look at the quarterbacks that he had before Lane Kiffin, and look at the quarterbacks that he's had since, and look at the style of the offenses. Does Mario need somebody to kind of drag him into modern football?
Yes and no. I'm still a proponent. I think Miami should be a pro style offense.
Okay.
I think when you think about Miami, you need to be able to have success at every level, right? The running game, short, intermediate, and deep level passing game. But I think Miami should be able to get a pro style offense where you run the ball down people's throats and you pass when you need to and when you can, right?
Yeah.
And you don't put up gaudy numbers, but you put up a lot of points and you win every week.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoyed Rhett Lashley's offense. I loved it at times, absolutely hated it at other times, as is with anything. But I think he can still get his offensive philosophy modernized without transitioning to a full spread. Now,
Okay.
I personally love the spread, but I think Miami's success and our roots in what we're built for and what we can do as a program should be predicated on a pro style offense.
Yeah.
With tight ends and our running backs and everything else. So
I certainly agree with the tight ends and running backs. Historically we've probably recruited running back and tight end better than any other position. And by historically, I mean since I've been watching. So this century in the 2000s.
yeah.
We've been fine at running back and tight end for most of those years. We have not been fine at quarterback.
No, or
So,
Waters.
And Florida athletes, man, like Florida's not known for making quarterbacks. They're known for making athletes, right?
Yep.
So, I agree that there's a lot of credence in the idea of featuring tight ends and running backs in your offense. Yeah. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe 5 years from now we'll have Ken Dorsey as head coach and not need to worry about the scheme. So
Who knows at this point, man? Anything is possible now.
yeah, he's doing fine up in Buffalo with my Bills. So
He's doing just fine.
yes. All right, man. Any last thoughts before we go, or are you ready to call it a day?
No, I mean I'm ready to start this 2-week bye week. Get some things ironed out. Hopefully, get some bring some competition back, get some players healed up and ready.
Yep.
Full force into UNC. So.
Yep. Cool. Well, awesome. Make sure you all go to aboutthefans.com. Check out all the merch we have there. And enjoy your bye week. I'll see you in 2 weeks, Gino.
All right, brother. Sounds good, man.
Okay. Take care, man.
Later.